When you hear the name BMW anywhere, the first thing that comes to mind is the most famous model of all its generations, the M3 Farmstrong. It's back with a German event to keep it in top repair form, and we'll be following the repair journey of the beast, the 2021 BMW M3 Competition. But before we begin, as always, don't forget to subscribe. Let's broadcast the BMW. The video starts with Matt receiving this particular model on a trailer. It came from Mazad, who managed to buy it for a very good price. The car's exterior condition suggests it's in excellent condition, with no accidents or flooding, which is unusual. Everything is perfect except for a few minor details like scratches, but overall, the car is flawless. The BMW hasn't been driven much, only 16,000 miles. The only flaw or problem it had when he bought it at auction was there's an unusual noise coming from the engine. The car is in good condition, with no major issues except for needing cleaning. He opens the hood to check the condition. The hood insulation is missing. The turbocharger connections are clearly loose. He opens the engine oil cap, but can't definitively check the oil level. He won't add more without knowing the exact amount. The coolant is present, and the charger is also clearly empty. He connects a charger to the engine's power supply wires. He goes inside the car to check the problems displayed on the screen, which show issues with the brake pads, tire pressure, and other maintenance. He takes the car to a workshop to investigate the problem. So far, everything indicates that this BMW is in good condition. He lifts the car to access the undercarriage. The bolts securing the lower parts are original factory bolts. He starts by unscrewing the oil filler cap to check the engine oil level. As soon as he removes it, oil comes out. Its color and condition are normal, but the amount is about 3 liters, while the normal oil volume for this engine is between 6 and 7 liters. He looks for a problem and finds an oil leak near the engine and turbochargers. He gets out and removes the oil filter to check its condition, but this is also normal. He installs a new filter, adds oil to the engine, and tops up the coolant. He connects the battery to the charger and starts the car. That's the sound we hear, an unusual sound for a 6-cylinder engine. It immediately stalls. He then uses a diagnostic tool to examine the engine more closely, because he suspects this particular model has far more mileage than the odometer shows. It seems illogical for an engine like this to have such a problem. While the car was still moving, as we saw, it had 16,000 miles. The diagnostic tool is connected and performs a quick scan, confirming that the car has traveled 26,000 kilometers, or approximately 16,000 miles, as shown on the gauges. There's no messing around. This is the correct information. So it's assumed that this particular model had been driven a lot and its oil level was low without anyone noticing the oil light coming on. The carbon fiber sticker is removed from the hood to check for any scratches or damage, but it appears to be in good condition. They lift the car and remove the front wheels, then take out the calipers. It's clear that the brake pads are completely worn and need replacing. Next, they remove all the underbody protection tanks. There's a leak underneath the engine, but this isn't the source of the oil leak. Finally, they disconnect the exhaust system pipes and remove the part. After disassembling the car, they disconnect the steering column coming from the steering box. Then we see them lower the car and connect the air conditioning refrigerant drain plug. They leave the plug running and begin removing the engine cover and the carbon fiber parts. Next, they disconnect the air intake and remove it. The next step is to disconnect all the wiring connected to the engine, but first they disconnect the battery's electrical connections, then the coolant line to the radiator. They then disconnect the charge cooler pipes and remove it completely. Next, they disconnect the air conditioning pipes from the compressor on the engine. They then raise the M3 again and begin disconnecting the electrical connections to the steering box. After that, they remove the oil drain plug and drain the oil that was previously added to the engine. Finally, they remove the exhaust pipes that they disconnected earlier to facilitate the process. He then accesses the drive shaft or rear axle. He starts by loosening its mounting bolts, then lowers the exhaust pipes. Next, he removes the cover that protects the drive shaft, revealing the bolts connecting it to the transmission. He immediately loosens the 4 bolts mounting from these. Then he loosens all the bolts securing the rear transmission mounts. Next, he lowers the BMW and loosens the remaining bolts of the safe frame. He places weight plates under the car to ensure everything falls properly. He then begins to lift the body, but first, he makes sure everything is completely disconnected. The hub, which is still connected to the strut on the right side, is disconnected. He then lifts the car, leaving the engine, transmission, and safe frame on the ground. He disconnects the coolant lines from the transmission and removes all its electrical connectors and wiring. Finally, he loosens all the mounting bolts of the transmission and removes it separately. Then he secures the engine on his stand, and here he begins to remove the oil pan. The sight he sees when he first removes it is truly unsightly, as there is a lot of metal shavings on the oil filter. This is usually due, as we mentioned, to low oil level, and the oil pan had likely reached the end of its lifespan.
Exactly. He frantically disassembled the remaining parts of the oil system. Literally every part he removed had a lot of metal shavings from the engine. He tried to quickly identify the problem visually, which was most evident on cylinder number 5. The difference in color was clear, and the effects of heat were very obvious. All the cylinders were affected, but number 5 was the most severely damaged because the engine oil level was very low. He continued working, and this time he unscrewed the bolts, securing the connecting rod. The first one he unscrewed was the bearing, which was in poor condition and needed replacing. As I mentioned, everything was damaged, but to varying degrees. So let's quickly explain what the noise in the engine does. In this case, you'll hear the movement of the problematic cylinder, the play, or the distance it travels. The noise will be noticeable. However, for a cylinder that's relatively healthy, there's almost no play, so there's no noise. There will be a vibration or instability in the engine. He continues working and removes the cap from cylinder number 5. The surprising thing is that there is literally almost no bearing in that spot because it has been badly worn and is now rotating around its place on the crankshaft. In this state, the connecting rod will no longer work. The reason for this is the roughness of the area where the bearing is attached. Even if a new one is installed in that spot, the roughness or worn surfaces will greatly affect its lifespan and it won't give the best performance. Within a very short period, he will need to replace the same bearing again for the same cylinder. So up to this point, his work for that day was finished. The next day, a situation occurred that he had never encountered before, or that we saw him with here on the channel. The car he had was identical to one of the same color and had been stolen. This car had the same specifications and the same apex. There are 5 of these cars in England, and the version that the reported car is the same color, but the interior is black. However, the one he has, as is clear, has a white interior. He also discovered that the stolen car has a different license plate, because he searched on Facebook and found that another car with the same specifications was stolen in 2023. To be sure, he needs to check the chassis number, which is located under the windshield, written next to the door and engraved on the chassis itself. To ensure the number hasn't been altered or tampered with, he also checks that the chassis number matches the car's license plate. The specifications he finds match the one he has, but things become suspicious when he looks at the maintenance records, which are almost identical to the stolen cars, as all the dates and mileage at the time of maintenance are exactly the same. The only difference is the interior color. One is white and the other is recorded as black. Up to this point, the situation is very confusing. The shock intensifies when he learns that the supposedly unaccompanied version had undergone maintenance in 2022 on the island of Operis. He decides to contact BMW and send them the chassis number of the version he has to find out the engine number it came with from the factory. If it matches the stolen version, then the one they have is definitely the stolen one. BMW takes his number to contact him again. At this point, Matt decides to access the computer, or ECU, to check the electronically recorded chassis number and finds it matches the one he has. However, this isn't reliable, as he learns that chassis numbers can easily be changed on the ECU of any car. Later, the person he's been contacting comes to him to understand the story. Acton tells him the whole story from the beginning, and once he understands, he can explain. Okay, let me explain this to you. Simply put, the car that was stolen in England never left the country. It didn't make any noise in Operis like the other car did or anything like that, but what happened here is that it was actually stolen in England and stayed there. So in a world where car theft doesn't happen, what happens when a car is stolen is that they buy a new file for it at the traffic department. This file is complete, of course, and includes the chassis number, maintenance records, and everything else. In short, it's a new identity for the car, so it's legal again. This might explain the different shades of color under the hood because here there's a new chassis number, so the car they have is 100% legitimate. Also, the maintenance file and chassis number of the car in Operis at the time mean that Matt bought new parts to fix this version before he even knew what the problem was. It cost him $6,700 at the time. Subscribed to Rank, he bought a brand new car, complete with all the parts that would fit it, for $30,000, which was a very reasonable price given the accident. So we're talking about a total of $37,000, which he's practically lost. He contacted Copart and filed a complaint, but they told him it would take 5 business days. He waited, and a whole week passed while he waited to find a solution for the parts he bought, which he couldn't return. He decided to buy a new car with almost the same specifications and defects, but a different color and 55,000 miles on it, much more than his original car, and it also had a problem with the engine. He made sure the new car wasn't stolen and inspected it thoroughly. He hoped he could get his old stolen car back and use the money to buy the new car, but Copart contacted him and told him that wasn't possible. Currently, the stolen car he has a different chassis number and license plate, except for the engine details which were tampered with. He knows this, so he understands that only the engine isn't stolen. After many discussions, he can't reach a solution with them at the moment, but he manages to finalize the deal with the second version and actually buys it.
He connected the loading motor and was almost in shock from the strange theft that had occurred. The first thing he did, even before starting the engine, was to make sure it wasn't stolen at all. The condition of this particular car was fairly good, although it had front-end damage that broke the bumpers and headlights, but none of the airbags deployed, which was very good. It was recorded that this particular car had a mechanical defect and was completely out of commission. The front-end damage had affected the crash bar, but not significantly, and some parts would definitely need replacing there, as it was clear that some of the mounting brackets were broken. The car was mostly out of oil because the oil coolers were broken, and the mechanics had replaced them with new ones. However, the car had been running without oil for a while beforehand, which likely caused the engine to develop a problem, just like the stolen car. So Matt decided to convince Copart that the car, it was stolen, and this was confirmed by a number on the copy that matched the number on the stolen car. Legally, he would get his money back. After some confirmations, since a lawyer got involved, Copart contacted him by email, assuring him that all the money he paid would be returned as soon as possible. He loaded it onto a truck, see image of the loading, to return it to Copart. He puts the engine, transmission, and any other parts that were removed from the truck into the truck. He takes the new copy to the workshop, loads it onto the hydraulic system, and goes underneath to check its condition. He removes the oil plug to check the oil level, as this copy, as I mentioned before, didn't have any oil. He drains the existing oil, which is in good condition, and adds 4 liters of new oil. He tries to start it using the start button, but there's still no response. Matt tried starting the car again, specifically by turning the engine from the end of the crankshaft near the belt assembly pulley to make sure the engine wasn't stuck. He discovered it was difficult, but found another solution. He tried turning the gear between the engine and the transmission. It turned normally, so he connected the battery charger to it. However, the car still wouldn't start, and there was no sound. The next day, the police arrived at Matt's house regarding the stolen car. Luckily for him, it had been returned to Copart. If it had been with him, the police would have impounded it, and he would have lost all his money. Matt informed them that the car was back and no longer with him, and the matter was out of his hands. He went back to his car and connected a diagnostic tool, clearing all the fault codes first. However, he found a problem, which he assumed was coming from the transmission, and lifted the car again. He shifts the gear selector from the designated area located underneath the gear selector. This is, of course, for emergencies in case the car malfunctions or encounters any problem that makes it difficult to start. This part shifts the gear selector so it can be pulled normally. He then shifts the gear selector to Park, or P. He gets out of the BMW and tries again, but the same problem persists. He realizes that this particular model has an anti-theft device called the Ghost Immobilizer, which has a specific button sequence, similar to what happened with a Rolls-Royce before. To get the car to start in Armstrong mode, someone must have sent him the sequence on Instagram, but he didn't pay attention and the message was deleted. He searches for it again, but unfortunately, he can't find it. Therefore, he is forced to find the small immobilizer device located inside the car. He doesn't know what it looks like and has never seen it before, but what he knows is that it's small, so he tries to reach the pedals in the usual spot, but he doesn't find anything. However, he manages to find a picture of a device exactly like it and continues what he's doing, searching for it again. Unfortunately, he still doesn't find anything. So, this car's journey ends temporarily because no other videos have been filmed yet as he's been traveling extensively in America.
I think this repair journey was very different. We started with a car that couldn't be fixed and sent me back to the auction, and we continued with another one, but unfortunately, it also couldn't be fixed. But honestly, everything pales in comparison to the German engine of the M3. So, thank you very much if you've made it this far. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and write your opinion about the theft that happened. Do you really think Matt Armstrong buys stolen cars and films them specifically for YouTube or not? That's all. Bye.